Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is the Blowing Rock Planning Board, May 20th, 2001, and I'll call the meeting to order. Before we get into approval of the minutes, I just wanted to share with you, I'd run into Renee at the post office the other day, and needless to say, she's having a real hard time, and so I'd ask for everybody to keep her in your prayers moving forward, because she's going through a real tough time. So, okay, approval of the agenda. I'll take a motion to do that.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Harrison.
Second.
Second with Mike. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Approval of the minutes. Everybody have a chance to hopefully go through those and look at them, and I'll seek an approval of that. Joe, thank you.
I say we approve.
Okay. Okay, Harrison second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. The first item is the Viking Properties coffee shop on 321. So Kevin, would you please give us the staff report?
Yes, sir, be glad to. I'm going to try to share the screen and pull up the site plan so we can work through that. And then I believe I've got plans. Okay, this is, it says CUP, it's not, it's Special Use Permit, SUP. SUP 2021-02 Viking Properties is the applicant. Britt Medley is the principal of Viking Properties, and they're requesting a special use permit to construct a drive-through coffee shop on the former Cambria car lot property at 7855 Valley Boulevard. The property is zoned general business, located in the water supply watershed. Property is further identified by Watauga County PIN 2817-173703. The proposed site is a redevelopment of the former Cambria car lot, moped shop, and psychic palm reader. The small building will be removed, and a new 432 square foot building will be constructed for drive-through and walk-up service. Employees will be the only ones in the building, as it's designed for just the coffee service, equipment, and storage only. The applicant is providing 8 parking spaces, with 1 being ADA accessible. There's 4 that would be required based on the square footage of the building. And then for the drive-through, there's a requirement that at least 5 spaces be provided in the queue line by the code, and there's 6 provided just immediately around the building. I'll go back to access for the drive-through in just a moment. First, I want stormwater detention. I want to talk about that. It's required based on the increased impervious area of just over 1,000 square feet. The site has so many things going on from an underground standpoint and other obstacles, it just about be impractical to construct an underground detention area for such a small increase. The applicant is requesting a waiver of that stormwater detention requirements, which would otherwise be required by the code. If you look through the site, is this arrow? Yeah. There's the underground, the creek that's piped underground. It goes out from above and it goes out to 321. There's some other utilities in this area here in the front street yard. All this, the utilities for the traffic signal, all that's going on here. There's sewer, there's water, there's sewer crossing the property. So it makes it difficult, and not a tremendous amount of increase in impervious area at 1,000 square feet. So that's something for consideration. To go further on access, property it currently has 2 access points, one on 321 and one on Sunset Drive. What's proposed would allow for 2 two-way traffic, in other words. Access to Maple Road, there's a little small access currently out on the Maple Road. Well, that'll be eliminated, If you can see this dashed dark line, that's a small landscaping wall to make up some of the grade change, and then behind that, there'll be a buffer installed to landscape the east side of the property from those homeowners on Maple Road. So no access through. And then, as you know, any place that's popular, that there could be concern with the amount of traffic that would generate. So I'll go back, there are some places where there's some parking spaces that would be available. Most of these would be for employees. There's a few extra spaces if you want to park and walk over and walk up and get coffee. And then there's a second lane, access lane, if traffic needed to be routed around during busy times to go around the outside of that queue lane and back around so they can double back. So it provides a little bit more access or parking or drive-through capacity than what is just shown in the picture. So those are the considerations of the site and how small it is. I'll point out, I do have a rendering. The building will be a one level, but it, as it's designed, has a second level above it, but there's no access to it. It's just like more like a cupola, but just to give it a different effect instead of just a one-story building. The design, it's got lap siding, some Eldorado stone, and a gray metal roof. So that's the design that they've come up with. You can see in the rendering where people would be able to walk up and get service, and then the drive-through feature as well. I mentioned, and you see the floor plan over here, it's just large enough for the employees' storage. There will be a bathroom that's for the employees inside, walk-in cooler, and the things that they need to provide the service. I mentioned the waiver that's being requested for that stormwater detention. Go back to the site plan. I did mention ADA access. I think that might be all I have. I'll be glad to answer questions. I know there's a couple of people that are on the Zoom call that are neighbors. Patrick Warren, representing the applicant, is the engineer for the project, and Bill Dixon is on the call, who's the architect, or he and Kelly Coffey have designed this building. So I'll answer any questions. If I can't answer, I'll defer to the applicant or the designer.
Okay, any questions from any of the board members?
Kevin, I just thought that drive-throughs weren't permitted at Dwelling Road.
They are, have been, they're not allowed downtown unless it's a bank,
Okay.
but drive-throughs are permitted in general business.
That's what I got confused.
Anybody else?
There's a big drain at the bottom of that, right on the inside of where all the utilities are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a big drain.
Right here, probably this catch basin.
Yeah, yeah. Will that drain handle the little bit of incremental surface that they're asking for the exception for?
Pete, I'll defer that to the engineer, Patrick Warren, and you can answer it now, or when you come up.
Any more, I'll get up.
Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions for Kevin?
Is everybody done for, Sam?
Has there been any kind of stipulations as far as what they plan on doing with signage, like on the property, on the building?
No, we handle those separately, administratively. So we never really have mixed in what they want to do with signage with the project. We handle that administratively, and unless they're needing something like at Ski Mountain, they need something, an exception to the size, but no, we haven't even gotten to that point.
And then where is the trash receptacle, or where that would go?
There wouldn't be a need for a dumpster. They could probably internally handle their own trash and probably have just daily takeout. They would not generate very much trash.
I just worry just from a coffee shop of the amount of waste that happens there. And I understand it's a drive-through, so you're not really consuming the coffee there, but I mean, I can see there being an issue with trash around the property if people throw things out, or if there are dumpsters, or if they're bringing the trash to the street for the town to pick up. I don't know.
If there's a need for a rollout, it would probably just be one, no more than they would generate. Again, no on-site trash unless someone is just there and drinking, guzzling
Yeah.
a cup down and then throwing it away. Everything else, and they could have a small collection right outside the window just for those that are going to throw it away. But the amount of trash with a building of that size would not be very much. Would be one rollout container if it's needed.
Okay. Would you like to come up and state your name and
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, Kevin, and staff, I'm J. Patrick Warren. I'm a professional civil engineer licensed in the state of North Carolina. And I have prepared this plan for submittal to the town for approval. And I will answer your question. Yes, that grate will handle that. I will be submitting calculations to the town for construction drawings, and the grate will handle the extra. And I'll be glad to answer any other questions that the board may have. The trash, yes, there will be a trash receptacle where you walk up the front, and we will do a rollout. As Kevin, we did discuss this. We just didn't think there was enough trash to be generated to require a dumpster. And we would appreciate the opportunity to waive the stormwater requirement, because like Kevin said, we have undergrounds. We have an existing sewer line, we don't even know where it is, that comes across that actually serves the property to the south. We excavated the other day, we couldn't find it. We did find the sewer tap for the existing building. There's a 36 RCP that goes under the property a little bit to the north of the building. We've had that, we're gonna be evaluating that. We had a geotechnical engineer out there while we were excavating. The soils are okay. So we really just, the DOT has a drainage easement in this area. They have a utility easement in this area. There's just really nowhere to put a system for 1,000. It's such a small increase that we would like to request a waiver on that requirement.
How does the DOT feel about the in and out there on 321?
It's been submitted to DOT and it's under review.
Gotcha. Do you have a plan B if they don't like it?
Don't know yet. We like Plan A.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes.
what kind of time frame would you expect there to be a decision from them on something like this?
For the DOT?
Yeah.
I would say within the next, before town council meeting, we'll have the decision.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else? Sam?
Was there any discussion with potentially making it an exit only onto Sunset? The
Yes.
only reason I'm curious about that is if it is busy or somebody drives past and they realize, oh, I want to get coffee, they're going to turn up Sunset potentially and maybe turn in, but depending on how traffic is, and then they go by it and where do they turn around? I know Maple Road's right there behind it, which is probably not the best option for a turnaround, but just curious if there's any consideration to making traffic flow a bit differently.
There's been a consideration, and that's one of the discussions we're having with the DOT now. The town engineers, McGill Associates, I think they recommended that, didn't they, Kevin, to have that as a one-way out. So it may revert back to that. We would prefer to have it as a two-way, but it may go back to one-way out.
One of the advantages of this site being on a corner at a signalized light is that if you're heading southbound, you can turn left and have the opportunity to get in, and then leave the site the same way come out to Sunset, turn left at the light, and continue on your way. Taking that, and then, you know, all those considerations need to be made, but if you took that out, then, you know, they're doing a U-turn at Church Street, coming back, and then they could still go out back at the light, but I think that's,
There's a U-turn at the fire station.
no, I mean,
Oh.
that's for fire trucks.
Gotcha.
But if you go up, that's just an advantage, you can see it as an advantage, being at a corner location. But this site being as small as it is, there's probably some constraints because of that. You only have so much room, so, and that's one of the reasons why the size of the building is what it is.
Kevin, you mentioned, how many spaces are required for the square footage? 4?
4.
Is there any thought or consideration to potentially just making it drive-through only, or
Oh, it
not
is.
having
Yeah, oh, the walk-up.
no walk-up, or not having additional parking? I'm just curious if you could get some more, you know, green space or less pavement by reducing the number of spaces in some capacity.
We consider that, but you got to think, there'll be, 2 of those spaces are going to be employees.
Right.
So that brings you down to 6, and one of those is handicap. So that gets you down to 5 spaces that are probably going to be used intermittently during the day. So that's why we were trying to get as many as we could.
Is there any seating planned anywhere on the property? Like,
Excuse me?
Any like outdoor seating or anything
No.
planned?
No.
So it'd just be to get in and go back to your car?
Assuming that there's a lot of traffic coming from both ways, and I referenced what they did at Comeback Shack in Boone, where they have a double wraparound. I can just see if this, I mean, based on the location being very popular for anybody driving by, and I just worry that it's going to get so congested with one line that you're on 321 waiting to turn in. And so is there any consideration to making a permanent double way around?
We looked at that, it's just, it's too tight. We just can't get the radius to get around back to the front, and then, because we looked at putting a drive, you know, like, I forget what it is in Lenore, but they have another window on the front, and your traffic patterns, there's just not enough room in there. Gotcha. But we did study that, though.
Cookout.
Cookout.
Yeah. I've been in that. My boat trailer attached.
I mean,
Go around
the
watching
developer he wanted to do that, but we just didn't have enough room to be able to do that. But I think they will be doing a app by phone too, so that you can order by phone and somebody can bring it out to you if you're in that second lane over there. That's what they were discussing. I'm not that technologically advanced to quite understand that, but that's what they're wanting to do.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kevin, you say we have some people on Zoom
I
and we
think
have
so.
some people here?
I think so. Well, yeah, if anyone here that wants to speak directly to this project.
But before we do that, let me just, for the record, indicate that we did get an email from Tim Gupton, who's the president of the Blowing Rock Civic Association, and just paraphrasing what he said was sort of what Sam, what you were saying about the potential of having backup traffic trying to get into the spot. But I think, Kevin, you've addressed that, and I think you've addressed that. And so just note that this be made part of the record. Tammy, I can give you the email if you don't have it. Okay. So was there anybody here that wanted to, in the audience, that wants to speak to it? Okay. Kevin, you want to go to the Zoom?
I think, I believe Ms. Gay was wanting to speak, or maybe her first name is Gay. I got an email from her today. So if you can hear us, if you want to go ahead and unmute, you have opportunity to speak.
Yeah, as a neighbor, I was concerned about the traffic and about the traffic pattern. It looked to me like there's not going to be much green space either, which is not going to help things. But I do live on, I'm on White Pine. I'm right behind this proposed project. And my concern is traffic, mainly. And being able to get, I'm concerned about people turning out onto Sunset, because Sunset's a little dangerous right there anyway with the curves and the elevation. So that would be my main concern about this particular project. It sounds like it's going to be pretty busy.
Y'all want to address it?
I just have a quick question, maybe Patrick, you know the answer. How much of a reduction in green space do you know, like by adding the parking and sort of shifting around? Is it's hard to tell from the plan how much there actually is.
Probably around 800 square feet to 900 square feet.
May I ask another question?
Yes,
Sure, go ahead.
Will any of I know there's some trees on the property. What is the plan for the existing landscape that's there? Is anything going to be reduced or removed, or what's your plan for the existing trees?
There are some existing hemlocks that are along this edge right here. They would be removed so that we could get the width, but they will be replaced with additional hemlocks starting close to 321 and going all the way around to Sunset. So there will be a new hemlock buffer planted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you have somebody else on?
I think, I believe Ms. Temple was going to speak towards the next project.
Oh, okay.
Well, Bill, you're on. You want to speak to the building design?
No, I'm good. Just one minor correction. There will be some storage in that second level loft area that accessed by a ship ladder, mainly, cups and lids and paper storage, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But not a stair to it or occupy the space per se.
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Let me go to that slide. So you see what he's talking about. There's a ladder for access into that area, but no occupancy.
Right.
It's just storage, like an attic.
Sam?
Kevin, I'm just curious, it may not have any relevancy, but in your opinion, how does the facade of this building mesh with the recommendations that we had for the visioning study? Is there anything that you would pull out of that doesn't align with that?
I'm not a big fan of the design of the awnings covering the drive-through and where the people would walk up. I expressed that too, but I think it's great to have it, but I think the way that it is, I think if it mimicked the roof above and had the barackets very similar, I think it is a little bit more in keeping with the flavor and theme. I'll leave it there.
Was that thought, how did the applicant take that
That-
idea?
They did not want to change it from the design, so I expressed to them in my back and forth, here's some things to consider. I think the rest of it looks terrific. I think it looks like it matches. That's the only thing, a little bit, soften that edge a little bit and to blend it in. That it was just, I've been doing it for a long time, and I know.
Is that something that planning board and council should be involved in, or is that
Yeah, I
something?
do. Yeah. I mean, y'all might think it looks fine too. It's just, hey, look, it's a big improvement. So I'm not trying to bust on any design. I'm not an architect. And this is a great improvement over what's there. I think it's just a small thing that I think lends itself more to blowing rock with a little bit different design on that part. On everything else, I think looks good. They had a couple designs that had a flat roof, and we worked to this hip design. Looks great. I think it fits. It's a very small thing I'm talking about, so we would be happy to have either one.
Okay, if there's no further discussion from the public, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing part of this.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Let me make sure,
Sam first.
let me make sure that, you know, somebody might have popped on, I think, okay.
Okay. Is there a second? Sam? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board? You've heard everything.
I do have concerns about traffic backing up on 321. I know they had an issue with that in Boone, at Starbucks. They put, the big DOT signs out there to help control traffic. I don't know what happened with that, but I know it was an issue at the time.
Okay. Sam?
I have concerns on on Sunset, and maybe this is a question for you, sir, was there ever any consideration of moving the entrance further up Sunset?
The Sunset Drive
Yeah.
starts going up. It was an existing curb cut, so that's why we proposed it there. That may come up in the DOT where we move it up the road a little bit, but because of the grade, to come out of the coffee shop to Sunset it, there's only a certain distance that I can move it.
Up in here, you can see the gradient right here. And Patrick and I talked about that too, on trying to move it away, but the transition's tougher.
I just can see a lot of, with waiting on the light and then people waiting there with cars there. I mean,
Only one person could make a left out of there until the light changes, right?
and then you have people coming up Sunset at the same time. Just concerning there.
Well, we considered a connection to Maple Road, but there was an objection to that. That would solve a lot of this, but, based on the neighbors' concerns, they didn't want it. So, and like Kevin said, there is an entrance, onto Maple now. And that would solve a lot of these traffic concerns, but we're not proposing that because of the opposition.
Understood.
Now, we can go back and put it in, but that's, if the board so pleases.
I know the public hearing's closing, but we want to flesh these things out when we can. Patrick, what's the possibility that if you moved it halfway, not all the way to the top, but moved it halfway in such a way that maybe you split the difference where it could come out into here?
Well, right now, we're at elevation, 3504 is the low. I'm getting all that drainage to go down to the existing. We're at 6 right there. Probably move it another 20 feet.
You know, when you took
Yeah,
some of your parking,
somewhere up there, yeah.
pivot some of the parking over and split it. I mean, I don't know if, it gives you a little bit of space to get into that turn lane or into that straight lane on Sunset so you can get through the entrance.
Might be a
We
little-
could look at that. I mean, it'll just be kind of steep going up, but,
Bill, you have any thoughts?
No, I would wait for DOT's comments, and I agree, the further away from the Volvo from Sunset is preferable, yes, but there's grade concerns and utility concerns there.
Usually on a business on a corner lot, DOT's probably will prefer the secondary road, which is Sunset, and not allow access on 321, but since you've got an existing cut there, that's, you may not be able to deny it, I don't know. But they're gonna prefer the secondary.
Pete, any comments? Okay. Joe?
I kind of like what, we'll call them staff, but it is Kevin, about the overhangs, bringing in to look like this,
Okay,
instead of flaps.
right.
That seems like, out of all the things that we're talking about, that might be the easiest, as opposed to egress and regress kind of stuff.
Okay, does somebody want to make a proposal with some of the thoughts and conditions that we've heard?
I just have one, like, two comments. I don't personally mind the look. I think it's more of a sort of mountain modern style, and I think it's okay. I struggle with the traffic questions because, granted, it is a small lot, but if there's a business that's going to be successful on it, there's likely going to be traffic. There's not a whole lot of uses that we could mandate or dictate, whatever that's going to be. And so it's kind of a struggle because if it was, I just wonder if we look at it a bit as in terms of, whatever else has been there in the past, car lot, the psychic, whatever. Those have been much smaller uses, and I think it's hard to mandate exactly what that use would be there when, this is a potential need, and we're saying that people would like it so much that it would create traffic. I just struggle with the question of how much we should delve into that, so.
I don't mind the look of it, and I think that we should table it until we hear from DOT, their recommendations. And then maybe if we can see another plan, Patrick, if, with the driveway moved.
Makes sense to me.
Kevin?
Good recommendations. You can, to keep it moving, you can say as a condition that whatever the DOT review process, whatever comes out of that, have to follow that. And that can be a condition of the CUP. The other would be, I think you kind of established you couldn't really move the driveway all the way up. It'd be so steep you really have a hard time getting out. But if you can split the difference, if you're comfortable moving it forward with those conditions, those caveats, that look, make these changes before you go to council. Or you can wait. Either way. I think your concerns are noted, and I think you you spell those out, whether it be conditions or requirements coming back.
Well, it kind of sounds like everybody's kind of talking about conditions, so does somebody want to make a motion with conditions attached to it to keep it moving forward until we hear from the DOT?
Yeah, I'll motion to move forward under the condition that we see I'd like to see the plan with it split and to hear from the recommendations from the DOT.
Okay. Does that cover everything we've been talking about?
Yeah, I'd like to have them be hopeful about this, because I think it'll be a large improvement.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
Okay,
let me
Harrison
clarify,
has
make
a,
sure I understand. You're wanting to make these conditions that they bring them back to you? Or are you saying, these are conditions, we would approve this project with these conditions that it be attached to the plan? Just want to be clear what they're required to do.
Any board members, anybody else feel comfortable with that? I don't know. It makes me nervous to say just whatever the DOT says is fine, so.
From a legal jargon, what, any? Sorry, you're a lawyer.
John? No, I would be concerned about the way that the motion is phrased, and that it sounds as if it would come back to us once DOT has made the decision or made a recommendation. To approve it in any other way moves it up to the town council.
Right.
But we leave them without our recommendation.
Right.
So seems to me that you've got an opportunity to table, which delays things, or that we approve it and that let town council deal with the issue of DOT when it comes before them. But that, to a degree, that escapes our responsibility. We don't have before us what we need to make that decision.
Right.
Could we instead say that we approve it as is, and then if DOT has a different recommendation than what they've put on their application, that it potentially comes back so that we can reassess what it has. So if DOT comes back and they say, oh, we only are gonna give you access on Sunset, then that's a different question than what we're seeing now. But it feels like we should look at it with what they have in the application, assuming that it's gonna get approval, but we can attach a condition that DOT approval as is. If their recommendation is something different than what we are seeing here, then it seems like it should come back to us.
Again, you've got neither fish nor fowl in a sense there. If we want to say that this looks good, we'll approve it with the variance having to do with the retention pond. I don't think there's anything else that's been brought up that's critical, except the traffic issue. We would say that, okay, we'll accept the traffic issue as it is, with the proviso that the driveway be moved up Sunset to the degree possible. And then we've made our recommendation based upon what's put before us. I don't think that we can condition anything on DOT because we don't know what that is.
Right.
Between now and the time it goes to town council, DOT's recommendation should be in place, or else I don't think town council is going to consider it. At that point, town council can take a look at it and say, well, planning board has recommended this, DOT has said something that's inconsistent with what we've done.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
So, is everybody comfortable with that? Sam?
Okay, so do we need to amend Harrison's motion then, or restate it?
I think it's now that
Did it get a second?
we get them to move.
Did it get a second?
No.
Did not.
No.
Okay. If you want,
We don't really have a motion
I
yet.
don't think it was a motion.
Y'all
I think it
trying
was
to put one together.
conversation.
Yeah, no, it's more of a
I just want to make sure
conversation,
whatever
but-
motion you make is
I
clear.
Okay.
I think we do what Mike was saying, where we ask them to move that entrance on Sunset up as far as they can, or that they're able to, and then be
And the variance
approved as
having to
is,
do
yeah,
with
with the
the
variance.
drainage.
Yep.
And then, in a sense, we kick the can up to town council, which is not unfair under the circumstances, because otherwise we have to bring them back for something that is gonna be an issue for council anyway.
Sure.
So I think to state the motion as I understand it, it would be to approve the project as presented with proviso that the developer move the Sunset entrance up as far as practical, and that the variance be granted for not having a catch basin or having a retention simply because of the impossibility of it.
Right.
And I think from what I see, the impervious surface change is not gonna be so much that the middle fork is going to be terribly affected. It's just a question of timing of the drainage coming out.
No, sir, and that's one point I didn't bring up, if I may. In some municipalities, such as Charlotte, Raleigh, the bigger municipalities, if you're within a certain distance of a 100-year floodplain, they don't want you to. In this case, it would be required to have detention. We want detention is in the upper reaches of the drainage basin. So you want the water to go on out. So it's really not an issue in this case.
Well, I asked that question, it's not a part of my motion. Part of my motion is to approve it as presented with the variance.
It's not going to.
Okay, so,
Tammy, is that stated well enough for you to do it?
okay,
Are you gonna proffer that, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, so Mike has restated the motion, and
Second.
Sam has seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, great. All right, moving along. The next item is the Heather Ridge Estates presentation. Kevin, would you give us your staff report, please?
I will. Let me, figure out what I'm doing. We'll go, I think I've got the agenda up. I can share that. That gives us the aerial. I think go to the other screen. Okay, this is special use permit 2021-03, Heather Ridge Estates Subdivision. K West LLC is the applicant. They're requesting this special use permit for a 9-lot single-family subdivision on the corner of Heather Ridge Lane and Green Hill Road. 5.1 acre subject property is zoned R15, single family, and is partially located within the water supply watershed. You can see that on the screen. The part in green is the part that's in the watershed. Let me say something again about water supply watershed. When I say that, it is not our drinking water, it's Boone's. So, our watershed is in a different area. The lake, the reservoir is drained the backside of Chatola, and then the rest is parkland. Just a clarification. When I say watershed, that's because it's so many miles from Boone's water intake, one of their water intakes. A little side note there. With this particular subdivision, there'll be no new roads, and each lot will have direct access to a public street. The subject property, as I mentioned, is a 5-acre wooded tract between Green Hill and Heather Ridge Lane. Each lot meets the each proposed lot meets the minimum size requirement of 15,000 square feet and the minimum lot width of 100 feet. Let me go to the site plan, if it'll come up. Well, there it is. Green Hill will be on the left border, running north, and the site is oriented north, and then Heather Ridge Lane. I'm not sure who owns it now, but it was Mr. William Miller owned the tract that the property surrounds.
Kevin, I checked yesterday and I haven't seen any deed recordation yet,
Okay, so he still owns it.
but as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
talked to him today, he sold it.
Okay.
Deed was recorded March 15th, he told me.
Okay.
First of this year, and I couldn't find
I understood it was sold too.
Okay.
So,
Well, anyway, it's not part of it. It's sold. And 5 lots front on Green Hill. 3 lots front Heather Ridge Lane, and one lot, lot 1, excuse me, is located on the corner of both streets. To minimize driveway cuts, access on the Green Hill Road, staff recommends, and I was in my staff report, I called out specific lots. We think that given the topography, situation with the road, as far as being able to see to get out, we think that access to Green Hill Road should be limited. We think it should be limited to 2 driveways. Y'all may have different thoughts on that, but there are some creative ways that they could provide shared driveways to multiple lots, whether they be off of Green Hill or coming in from the backside on the Heather Ridge. But just try and take into consideration the difficulty of being able to see, the roados that are there now, when a house is built, some of that's going to be pulled back. You'll have a better sight distance than you do now, but there's a grade change, especially on lots 6 and 7, that would make just direct driveways out to Green Hill a little more difficult. So that's staff recommendation, that the number of driveway accesses on Green Hill be limited. There is no access on lot 7 and 9 to the lower section of Heather Ridge Lane, the gravel section. That's private. It's a private road from the end of the pavement. And in fact, it's outside of town. The town limits line, if you saw in the I don't know exactly where that line is. That's what GIS projects. It may be, town limits might run along that line right there, but it's pretty close. But anyway, they don't have access to that part of Heather Ridge Lane.
Kevin? Maybe it's not.
Hang on just a minute. So no access to that portion of Heather Ridge through those lots or through this property. I'll go on to stormwater management. Because there's not a road being proposed, there's no requirement for stormwater management, no requirement for detention. Each lot, just like anybody else that has a house, can build their house and then have their gutter drains and all that just run off the property to a driveway, to a ditch that's adequate to handle it. That's how anybody else would develop. So there's no requirement for stormwater detention. As far as water and sewer, the engineer has proposed on Green Hill Road, proposed a 2-inch public pressure sewer line, low pressure sewer line that would run up the ditch line that would serve lots 7, all the lots on that side. And then lots 8 and 9, there's a low pressure system that's been extended over the past few years for some new homes that have been annexed in and developed, and they've connected. And so this black dotted line on the right side on Heather Ridge will be extended to serve lots 8 and 9. And all that would be at the developer's expense, and then those lines will be turned over to the town. I'll be glad to answer questions. I know there's several that are on Zoom that want to speak. I know Mary Hill is here, and Wayne and some other folks in the back that want to speak. Rick wants to speak related to traffic, and he's provided you some information earlier in the week dealing with Green Hill Road. So I'll be glad to answer questions at this point. I will say, I did speak with Eric Ford and spoke with his dad Earl earlier, but Eric had concerns on Heather Ridge, as people's been using it over the years, with as if this is developed, houses are built, that construction traffic, if they happen to use Heather Ridge, unless it's closed off, to help out with maintenance, gravel maintenance or whatever on Heather Ridge Lane. Now that could be a private agreement between them and the developer, but there's some consideration that Eric had with maintaining a road which is private and they own it. So I wanted to share that as a concern that came out from
Is the developer here or on Zoom or?
Yes. Chuck
Oh,
Phillips,
okay, great,
representing the owner,
okay.
or the applicant.
So do we want to just hear from the developer now and then we can discuss it further? Okay, if you come up and state your name and.
My name is Chuck Phillips, and I've been a contractor here in this area since 1986. So we've done a lot of this kind of thing. So I have some partners on this that they too have had. Mr. Pavian's his parents had a residence here off of Shoals Mill Road since he was probably 10 years old. So he's been coming up here for 50-some years. So we're very sensitive to what you guys are trying to do and what Kevin and staff try to do every day of protecting the area. And, you know, so I fully understand that, and they do as well. So I'll be happy to answer questions, but I think Patrick, he's also the engineer on this, as well as the coffee shop, so I know he's gonna present some technical specific things, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll try to.
Okay, Sam?
Is the plan to build houses yourselves on there,
Yes.
specs?
Yes.
Private home spec homes?
Yes. Yeah, not to sell the lots.
Right.
Yes. And I might mention, I get, on the other side of the road, you can see there's several lots more than what we're proposing here, as well as on this side. You know, density, I get, that's a big issue. And if you guys are familiar with the property, there's a lot of mature, older trees. We'd like to preserve as many of those as we can. It was also mentioned by a neighbor, if we could maintain as much of the natural buffer that's there now, of course, we would try to, you know, comply with as much of that as possible. And Kevin's recommendation, we're fine with trying to just, you know, limit to a couple of accesses there with shared driveway accesses and, you know.
Yeah, that would be my concern is going to what Kevin said about limiting the access on Green Hill, because I'm sure you're well aware of everybody yelling about speeding and traffic, although that has no bearing on what you're doing. But if you could limit it to 2, I think that might help a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe Kevin had recommended this, but a joint driveway to go in for 6, 7, a joint driveway for 4, 5. 3, I think we could access here and then keep 1 and 2 separated, and then of course 8 and 9. So it works. I mean, we're fine.
You could make that work?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
There's a requirement in the code that when you have a shared driveway, if it's over a certain distance, that it's got to be 18 feet, just for fire access. I don't think that would be a problem if, once they get into that scenario. And then once it's not shared anymore, it could just be standard 10-foot driveway or whatever they put. But,
Yeah.
and there's also slope requirements. I don't get into all the details that we utilize when we're looking at a site plan, but the driveway is limited to 12% for the first 20, not more than 20% for the rest of it to serve the property. So that's where lot 7 will be tough to come in off of that side.
Yeah, that's really the only place.
Yeah.
You mentioned fire. I mean, the fire department doesn't have any problem getting access to everything on Heather Ridge?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, there's 2 hydrants on Green Hill side. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, there's 2 on Heather Ridge too.
Where are those located?
So there's
See the little symbol right there?
Okay.
there's one there, there's one here. There's one here and one here.
Four hydrants there.
Okay.
So I'm not a fireman, but I think it's pretty good.
Okay. Anybody else? Pete, Bill, Harrison? Joe?
I'm good.
Okay. Sam? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so why don't we go to the public then? I know there's some people here that wanted to speak, so if you could come up and give your name and address and tell us what you think.
Well, we lived that, owned it for
Would you give your name and address?
Berry Hill.
Okay.
140 Pedal Ridge Lane.
Okay, thank you.
Second house. It was just very upsetting to see this. It's been a wonderful, beautiful house on Heather Ridge. I don't know how much the one that was just built, I don't know how many million. This just looks like it's gonna be, pardon the say, a little bit cheap. You know, if you go in and put 3 houses in a nice cul-de-sac and done something instead of just choo-choo-choo-choo. I can't imagine shared driveways. I also can't understand that the property that Will said today that he sold and closed on March 15th, we don't even know who owns it. Wouldn't that,
I think
did you all buy it? Did you buy it?
Well, it has a cottage, yeah.
So you all gonna have that too?
Well, Patrick has already worked with, but I think it's a family, isn't it?
You don't want
Isn't it a family that owns it now?
the William Miller? I don't know.
Well, somebody ought to know.
No, I mean,
Tell me what am I talking
yeah,
about?
because I'm like Tammy, I'd say the GIS is, the GIS in Clark County is lacking.
It is. But I looked at deed records and I couldn't find it, but I'll have to look again.
That just doesn't hardly make sense, you know? It really.
There's
But you're
one
gonna approve
thing,
the division and you don't even know what part of it, you know.
It's not part of it though, Mary.
No, it's not, but it could be. You don't know that.
That lot, that's a lot of, well, what I'm saying is that's a lot of records. Somebody can build a house on it tomorrow. Doesn't matter. We'll issue a building permit. It's not part of this property. We sent,
We don't know. You were saying you thought it was. Didn't you just say you thought it was the person that somebody could bought there?
no, he's referring to the property in question. I think I heard you ask him, did he buy Mr. Miller's property?
Right. That's what
Yeah.
I asked.
No, he did not.
Okay, but we don't know who did. So it could have been, we don't know, we should know that, because that's an acre right in there.
I understand, but I'm not sure why it matters who owns it, because it's not part of this project. We sent
It's
notice.
far enough. It's far.
No, it's not part of this project. It's not part of the application. Whoever owns that, they received notice about this project. And it is not, you know, there's 9 lots, it's not part of this property.
If the people that own that received a letter, but you don't know who it is that owns it,
We could-
how did they receive the letter?
Now, I have a list of whoever's on the tax listing, and that's where Tammy sends the notice.
But Will said that he sold it and closed March 15th to somebody else.
Okay, well, they would receive it too. If they bought it, they would receive the notice, because it's forwarded.
But if it's not recorded, Will said maybe, anyway, I don't understand, this is real surprising. Can you say what price tag's that you'll be putting on there since you're gonna do?
Well, there's not 100% of the floor plans or anything else yet, but what we're proposing, any sensitivity to the size of the lots, we're not looking for 3,000 or 4,000 foot houses. We're thinking 2,000 to 2,300 feet. And, you know, price range, as you all know, building costs are skyrocketing every day. Probably, you know, in the lowest would be probably 800 to low 9s. But I will point out, based on what you said, the density I'll be clear though, that, we're not buying that property right there. Is that what you're asking?
That's what I was asking.
I don't know.
The somebody has bought it.
I don't know anything about that. That's not part of this.
Are you going to be cutting all the trees?
No, it'll be, we want to be sensitive to the large trees. We've already done tree survey, they're all marked, and try to maintain, as best we can.
We're just concerned that, it's been a long time, it's really, really one of the nicest streets in Warnock. And it's wide, nice. They have shared driveways, somebody has 4 cars, somebody has 4 cars, you're backing out. My son lives somewhere in Winston, they have a shared driveway, and it's just awful.
We have shared driveways all over to minimize the amount of grading. With the topography that we have, we encourage shared driveways whenever possible.
Maybe in so to, but someone like Lynn or something, you have a lot here.
Absolutely.
In nice
Very-
neighborhoods.
Yes,
Where?
all over town. Where constraints based on topography wouldn't lend it to everybody can have their own driveway. In fact, everybody here can have their own driveway. Our recommendation, because of knowing the grade changes on Green Hill as it goes down and this lot goes up, and there's no secret of the speed that's been complained about and shared on Green Hill, no doubt. That a driveway off lot 7 to connect directly to Green Hill, probably not a good idea. And so the recommendation, if you could share them and have that access, makes good sense.
We just think it kind of cheapens the neighborhood to have that many in that small area to have. Look nicer, bigger another way.
Thank you very much. Okay, other speakers? Did you have somebody on, I'm sorry. Come up, state your name and address, please.
My name is Wayne Smith, and my wife Claudia and I own the lot.
I'm sorry. Let me get it up there, Wayne.
Across from 7 on the gravel road.
Right there.
The gravel road section of Heather Ridge Road Heather Ridge Lane goes through our property, and it is a private road. And before I ask my questions, I will vouch to the driveway issue on the Green Hill Road. It is a leap of faith every time you come out there, because we have to come out the gravel ridge road, and it's like I said, it's like blowing rock in a lot of places. You turn the radio off or the window down and you listen, and then if you don't hear anything, you go. Anyway, I have a couple of questions, and I'm sorry, but they're going to be personal. One of them is water movement, and I've read all the rules and regs for the state, and as Kevin said, unless they do anything to appreciably affect the water movement onto your property that would cause some damage, water goes where water goes, and there's no real issue that I can bring up to them. But my concern would be, in the last 3 years, I've spent $15,000 for drainage in my lot, because if you've all been out there, you know how low the lot that we live in on our side of the gravel road is relative to the piece of property that you're going to develop. We've spent $15,000 moving water, repositioning it, drainage, subsurface drainage. We've done a pretty good job of catching it and moving it to the creek that's below the house. That creek happens to be one of the springs to the New River. So we've caught as much water as we can. It has negatively affected the foundation of the house that we're going to have to augment this year because it's beginning to settle. And I know that there are a number of different types of drainage basins, or whatever, basin's not the right word, but catch areas along Green Hill Road that move water down. And in this particular place right now, it's kind of overgrown and it's not maintained. As you go more towards town, it can be anywhere from blacktop to improved areas. And I'm sure that would, as you build more lots, build on these lots, it would take away some of the drainage of the lot and move the water to the front towards Green Hill, and therefore it would come down into my lot. And I don't know if there are any plans or considerations been given to catching that water, slowing that water down, or preventing it to add to the situations. I've got pictures I can show you of how that water stands before development, and I can only imagine that after development, it would get worse. That's one question. The second question is, and it was brought up, I think Eric mentioned, about the construction traffic. There's been significant construction on the paved section of Heather Ridge Road, and we've been pretty fortunate with having the developers or builders not access the gravel road, and they use the paved road. Not everybody, but by and large, they try to comply with that because it is our road, and I personally replaced that road probably 3 times in the years I've been there with gravel because of the construction or heavy equipment that wouldn't run there. People like to drive through that area. And so I would ask that if you continue with the project, that your construction group, and since you're doing it all, it'd be easy to talk to you about it, eliminate them, prevent them from coming to the gravel section unless they plan on rebuilding the road every time a house is put up there. I know somebody's going to talk about speed, but that's a different issue, and you don't have anything to do with it. Fortunately, you don't have anything to do with that. But I would be concerned about your driveway access. It's dangerous going on Green Hill.
Excuse me, I had a question. You mentioned the problem with water on your property.
Yes.
Are there other people that live on that other side of the road that are going to be impacted?
Where are we? Right here. So this is our property right up in the corner there. That's Green Hill Road and Heather Ridge Lane right there at the gravel section. This is Evelyn Bailey's. It's an open lot, and I don't think she has any plans. I mean, she's owned that land for a long, long time. Earl and Martina Ford are up in that area. And what happens with water movement, it comes 2 ways. It comes off Green Hill Road onto Heather Ridge, the gravel section, and runs down our road. And we put a significant catch basin at our driveway to catch it and pump it past the house before it runs into the natural creek there. We've also caught the water as it comes down and parallels Green Hill Road and comes across Heather Ridge, the gravel part. We're underground with maybe an 18-inch pipe, and then we've, on the opposite side where our yard begins, we've dumped it into another catch basin and buried it for probably, 50 yards maybe, across the backside of our house, again paralleling Green Hill, but at this point well below Green Hill. And that's an 18-inch pipe, and we've run that water into that creek as well. My concern would be is that since there's not as much percolation going to be available to the lots when they put buildings on it, is that excess water is going to do one of 2 things. It's either going to sheet across and come down across our road, or go to the front and get on a catchway and then come down with greater speed, bypass what we've done to catch the water, and just recreate that situation all over again. So that's the concern, and it gets pretty deep in our backyard at times.
Right.
But we have been I would say we're fairly successful in catching it so far. I just don't want that situation to reoccur.
So, Jay, do you have any comments about how to address what he's saying?
I would just recommend that we meet with Mr. Smith, that Chuck and I meet out there and look at look at the drainage area, how it's sized, and see how we can work together on this to ensure that we do not damage Mr. Smith's property.
Right.
I think that's fair, because I think
Okay.
maybe tie in what we've already done would be a lot to catch that water.
Do we need to build that into a recommendation, or Kevin, how do we do that? Recommendation?
Yeah, that's a reasonable condition. Sure.
Okay.
I need to speak to water as well.
Okay. Are you
I'm
done?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Please come on up, give your name and address, please.
My name's Patricia Aiken, and I live at 252 Heather Ridge, which is right here. So all of these lots are lower than that as well. So the water, whereas it goes that way, it also will be flowing across the street onto ours. So I don't know where the proposed driveways are from lots 8 and 9, which are what affect me. But what I can imagine is that, I mean, just getting how it's done, is that whatever driveways, you know, at road level, the water can come off of that, and the grading of the ground as well, is that all of the water from 8 and 9 could flow directly onto mine, which, as I said, is right there. Same as true with my neighbors here. The lot next to me is empty, so, and they had interest, but couldn't be on this call. It's not developed yet, it's someday it will be, but it's the same thing. So we're all gonna get water, because again, this is higher flowing down as well.
Again, we'd like to make the offer to Ms. Aiken, until the actual site plans for lots are developed, it's hard to tell which way exactly the water is going to run.
Right.
But you're correct, you're lower than these, that right there, so.
We're lower. So which I think is probably somewhat what Mary was speaking to about the way that it's being developed, which is just all of these individual, each one, which means that there doesn't have to be any water plan. Whereas if there had been a street put in it and stuff like that, there would have been. At least that's what I think I understood from you, Kevin.
No. If you build a street, you have to provide detention
Right.
for the street portion. You still don't have to do anything for the houses that are built a part of that street.
Okay.
So the only difference in this is there's not a street being proposed where the detention is required
Right.
for that additional. So it's kind of a trade-off. There's not a street being built,
Okay.
so you don't have to provide the detention.
But if there were a street built and there were not, I mean, I'm looking at 2 driveways coming, and water will come from higher to lower. My drive's across the street, so it will come directly onto my property, as I understand. But again, I don't know where the driveways are gonna be, but other those lots. So that was my concern as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So Kevin, again, moving forward, we can ask the applicant and the engineers to meet with the people that are affected to discuss and resolve their concerns on water? Okay.
Yes.
I've got a question that is related, I think. If, say there was just one house that was gonna be on here, are they limited to the number of driveways that they could cut in? Like, say you wanted to put a house in the middle of 5, 6, and 8. Could you cut in a driveway, could you cut in the same amount of driveways that are being proposed? Like, if they came and had a permit to you guys?
Let's make an assumption that these lots exist as they are.
Well, no, I'm saying like, because it's one lot right now, right?
One lot, right?
Right, so if they came to you tomorrow and said, we're gonna build a 10,000 square foot house right there, but we wanna have one driveway off of, or 2 driveways off of Green Hill, and then 2 there, would they have any issues with approval to get a building permit?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there are properties, maybe there's a property that has 3 driveways, maybe one in the back and a loop in the front.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a situation, that's not common,
Yeah.
but there are many people that have 2 driveways.
On a 5 acre piece of property, it could be common that there's multiple entry points on that.
Yes, 5 acre, there's not very many 5 acre pieces left.
Well, I know, but
But if
just
you,
in general.
let's say it was right up the road on one of the open field lots, and they had a driveway out to Green Hill, and they might have another one going back to Tipton Lane. I mean, there wouldn't be a requirement that says you can't do that.
I guess my point I'm getting to is the site plan itself, like if we can actually potentially make a recommendation that there's only a certain number of driveways per your suggestion, whereas if they just came in and built one house, they could have multiple driveways that could potentially cause more water issues than what we could recommend.
Yeah, all right. Yes, I
Like,
mean,
so
there's
there's
not,
nothing-
there's nothing to
There's
prohibit.
nothing about, so even if this was, you know, if you combined all the lots, so you had, you know, 4 different lots instead of 8 or 9, you could still potentially have the same number of driveways that would be coming in there, so.
Right, with those exceptions that you might place as a
Sure.
recommendation.
Which
Now,
one?
again, your recommendations are just that.
Sure.
Gets the council.
Right.
They may increase the number, they may, expand on your recommendations. They may say, no, that doesn't make any sense. We're not gonna do that. But, generally, if you make a recommendation, they're gonna probably hold fast to that. And, you certainly have the right as a board to recommend reasonable conditions. Being that there's no sidewalks anywhere in the area, I think it'd be unreasonable to say, hey, we want you to put a sidewalk down Heather Ridge Lane. You know, there are places as you get closer to town where that is a requirement or has been, in lieu of a sidewalk that wouldn't go anywhere, we would ask you to put in a trail that would connect to something else as you get closer to town. This would be not one of those scenarios. Wouldn't make any sense.
Sam, you had a,
To Ms. Aiken's point about putting in a road, I guess, and having the drainage that you would have to do the due diligence on that still wouldn't alleviate the drainage coming off the back of those properties that's close to your property. And so I really don't think it's a matter of a road coming in between it, but I think it's an individual lot by lot, I guess, study as far as what drainage is in addition to what's already there. Because it doesn't seem like putting in a road in between here is gonna help drainage to Mr. Smith's property or Miss Aiken's property. It's just the byproduct of having an additional lot next to their property and being built next to their property. So,
That's right.
I mean, in my mind, I think it's a recommendation on determining drainage issues on a per lot basis, not on the whole property, because you're not really alleviating any of the byproducts of, say, to the top of what we're looking at towards Mr. Smith's property or towards the right, Mrs. Aiken's property. So I guess I'm just asking, would a road even help? Would a road's drainage through this property even help the issue that they brought forth?
No, because if you build the road, you gotta provide the detention for the road. If you don't build the road, you're still at the starting point. You haven't done anything.
so hang on for a second. We have another speaker, so let's hold your question. We'll come back to you.
It's got, yeah, the folks in the room that wanna speak
Yeah,
first,
right.
and then we'll
So
go to the
let's
Zoom folks.
hear everybody, and then we'll move on to a closed public hearing, and then we can have an internal discussion among the
come
board
back.
members. So Rick, you want to come up and,
I would like to get back to your question though, because you're changing the density. And when you cover all this up with concrete and the footprints of houses, you're gonna change the drainage for everybody that's around there. So let's not forget that when you cover up something with concrete, then the water's gotta go someplace.
Yeah.
And if it can't go into the soil that's currently there, then it's gonna go to his house, and to your house, and to everyone else's house around it. But that's part of, in my mind, when you look at this, we need a holistic approach to planning. You just can't sit there and say, well, it meets the minimum square footage, and it can have a driveway, and so it's okay. Because it's not okay. Because we keep on adding density to these streets, such as Green Hill, through approvals of developments, and you take nothing into account for the larger picture. Now, I'm Rick Parsons. I live in the 1500 block of Green Hill Road. I've been fighting a speeding problem on Green Hill Road for the 10 years that I've owned the house. It's time to stop kicking this can down the road and saying, oh, it's not the planning board's problem, it's town council's problem. Well, no, it's all of our problem. I sat out there today, there's a sign indicating speed. in the 1500 block, cars were doing 45 and 50 miles an hour today. That was for the 1 hour that I sat out there. Now, I'm not against development. I'm all for development. It sounds like you're very reasonable and willing to work with everyone. So I think you ought to be up here advocating for control of speed and all of the other issues that we have, because the people you're selling these houses to are going to have the same problem. And it will affect your resale, and it will affect what's going to happen on your street, just the way it's affected ours. And it's time for this board to address the problem. When you look at changes in density, you're going to affect the traffic. Now, I can't sit here and say it's going to be worse, but I can tell you it's probably not going to be better. Now, people's speed. This street from the Parkway to Edge Hill Road is 1.1 miles. It's essentially straight. This development falls in an area that has visibility problems on lots 5, 6, and 7. I forwarded you a presentation that I made. I hope you had time to read it. In the other direction, you still have a visibility issue on the other lots coming in the other direction. These are all things that need to be considered. This town has gone to do a study on traffic and safety issues on Green Hill Road. This development should be part of that, and the results and recommendations that come out of that should be represented and reflected in the ultimate design of whatever is done here and whatever's done at the other end of Green Hill. It all needs to be taken into account to improve the quality of life for everyone on Green Hill, on Heather Ridge, at the other end. But it's time for us to stop looking at this as a piecemeal, lot-by-lot problem. It's not. You know, so I've said enough. I just hope that we will incorporate the traffic study into this development, address the problems that additional development causes, and provide a solution that's satisfactory to the people that live there now and the people that may live there in the future. Thanks.
You want me to do your?
Well, it's just one slide. The second one. And it really just is a depiction of Green Hill Road, the yellow areas of proposed development, the red straight areas where I talked to the north is the Parkway, to the south at the first bend to the left is Edge Hill Road. Primarily the speeding occurs in the area where this development is going to be. And it's a safety issue. I mean, that sign that said hidden driveway at the bottom of it, lot 7, is there for a reason, because it's a school bus stop. It can't be seen in the afternoon. So let's not forget that what is done here adds more cars, more houses, more driveway cuts. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to work with everybody. I'm not going to change the number of cars. You're still going to have the same number of lots. You're still going to increase the traffic density. I haven't bothered to figure it out. I'll do that at some point. But it needs to be addressed. You know, you just can't look at lot by lot and go, oh, it's okay, it meets the standards.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
And thank you for your presentation. Okay, Mr. Smith, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate the fact that the drainage issue that I speak of on the Green Hill side, as it approaches the gravel section of Heather Ridge Lane, it's probably even magnified more so on lots 8 and 9 because they slope even more. So as that water comes off 8 and 9 onto the paved section of Heather Ridge Lane, that accumulation of water is going to be as much or maybe even greater as it comes down that road because there's quite a slope on that. And being personal again, it's eventually going to wind up in my backyard. So when we talk about water catchment or water movement, you need to review that because you're interested in crossing the road, but there's a ton of it that's going to stay on the upper side of that road in whatever kind of gully system they put between the lot line and the road itself. That was just
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? Marshall, you, okay. Any further comments? Oh, yeah.
I told him what to say.
Oh, okay.
But there is a berm, I mean, the city just put, paved that street, and they're aware because they had a berm, so it would just pour into all the driveways, and we're up high on that. That that 7 and 8 is higher, it's gonna come into, this guy's built a beautiful, beautiful house on a $2 million lot. It's just going forward again. It's just, to me, it doesn't seem in keeping with what's there, the spec houses, all jammed up, and all those trees gone and dirt. He's right, it'll just form someplace to go.
Okay, thank you. So, Kevin?
Ms. Temple, I believe, wants to speak.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Zach Hill, Leslie Temple Seisman. We live on 1663 Green Hill Road. And Leslie's here as well. But, I mean, reiterating exactly what everyone has said, the stormwater is an issue. I mean, the house to the Parkway side of me has had sandbags out there just due to the water runoff that potentially gets into their house. And there's a small creek that runs there, but it is not any kind of maintained anything. And as you put in 9 houses in a 5-acre lot, that reduces a great deal of the water retention that's there. So, I mean, if one house was there and there was 3 roads there, that wouldn't probably create as much of a problem as I'm thinking as there could be with 9 houses and a lot less vegetation to control that water. So my house even sits very close to that dry creek as it sits, and there's changes within my foundation because of that. So all that being said, I don't know, that there are regulations that Kevin was talking about. I don't know how that applies, but I would think as a developer, you'd be very sensitive to these issues that everybody has about water retention as this sits right on a ridge where water does not stay. It moves in either direction. So that's a very, very sensitive issue to everyone that lives here. Secondly, the road, yes, I've lost pets to this road. My children, I've worried about tremendously on this road. And it is a very narrow strip of pavement. And on either side, there are significant gullies that the water runs on either side. And so what is going to happen with the road? I have questions about that. I mean, it seems like a very, if you can't do anything with the road itself, it puts a lot of pressure on it with extra driveways there. And as far as the visibility, it is not good. It's not hard. You can deal with it, but you have to manage it. And I think that all of that is adding 2 driveways might be okay, 3 or 4. It's kind of a lot to ask, but those are my concerns, and I just wanted to voice them.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Okay, is that everybody, Kevin? Both on Zoom and...
Margaret, do you want to speak?
I'm here on the call representing the property owner, which is ASM Investments. My mother, Barbara Scott, and my aunt, Anna McKenzie, co-own the property. So I'm here listening on their behalf.
Okay. Okay, did you have any questions, Margaret, or do you, available to answer questions if needed?
I did want to share that we took into consideration what the options were for selling this property before going the route of selling it in its entirety in the hopes that it would be a developer with a cohesive plan for developing that property as opposed to carving it up and selling those lots piecemeal, individually. So, so far, what we know of the buyer and the developer, we've been pleased with what their plans are that they're putting forward. And we also own a home on Green Hill Road, so we are invested in seeing that the buyer and developer are good stewards of the property and are going to make the good neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, if there's no further public comment, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion closed.
Okay. Second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Who was second?
The second was Sam. Okay, we've heard a lot. So, any comments from,
I have a question for Kevin. Can this planning board make recommendations for traffic items that are not necessarily a part of this plan, but more of a town decision on town property? See, it seems to me this is two issues that are really, the safety issue is, other than the road, the amount of roads on Green Hill seem to be the only issues as far as safety, and drainage is obviously another issue. But the safety issue here goes beyond what the developers and the owners are really trying to do, it seems to me, other than the restrictions of the driveway.
It's a separate problem.
So I just don't think, I'm asking, do we really have the ability to recommend something for this project that has nothing to do with what he's doing? It's more of the safety of Green Hill Road around this area.
Again, you're making recommendations. And you've heard the concerns dealing with traffic. And as a result, some of the things that we're looking at with adding new lots are the specific issues with how access to those lots. So how you address them, and we, from staff standpoint, maybe need to limit the number of driveway cuts onto Green Hill, which, coupled with a traffic study and any recommendation like that, they're really going to be those traffic study recommendations. I don't know what they are, but they're going to be more focused on dealing with the traffic that's using the road, coming from wherever in the county, going out the bottom side, going towards Lenore, using it as a cut through. That's what it's been used. So how that's addressed will come out of that. I think it's wise to consider access to a road, knowing the situation as it is, and especially in that particular part of the site, of the road. Other parts, probably not an issue. But Green Hill, as you get out of this straight stretch and you hit the first curves, traffic slows down, access is probably worse in certain lots. You know, curves, blind curves, so it's very complex, but I think you're wise to be addressing how this site impacts dumping out on the Green Hill Road. I don't even know if I answered your question.
You did, but thank you.
You're welcome.
okay, Sam?
I've got two questions, I guess, for Kevin. One, I think the current owner mentioned that they looked at multiple ways they could sell the property. If they wanted to split it off into multiple lots and sell it, would there be any approval process that they would have to go through for that, or could they just do that as is and say, we're going to section off this piece and we're going to sell it, and we're going to section off this piece, we're going to sell this?
You're limited to how many times you can cut that property up over a period of time.
Do you know what that limit is?
I'll say it's 5 years, but the cumulative effect means that you can't break off more than 3 lots within that same period.
Gotcha.
So you can't try to circumvent the ordinance by saying, well, we're gonna do 3 lots this year, 3 lots next year, and 3 lots the next, and then we have our 9. Essentially, that is a major subdivision if done incrementally like that. That's a major subdivision. The only reason this is coming through the special use permit is because it's more than 3 lots. That's, the owner of the property chose to not do it themselves. They said, we want to offer the property up for sale. If a developer wants to go through the process of breaking it up, we're going to leave that on them. And so that's the route they chose, instead of doing it themselves and then selling them off.
Gotcha. And then, I guess, more of a confirmation, there's no variances or anything attached to the special use. It's just mainly due to the fact that it's more than 3 lots.
There's no variances requested.
So it seems like to me, we should consider the fact that it is more than 3 lots, what potential effects it could have on things like traffic or water or noise or whatever those other additional
Yeah, I think
items
that's
are.
where, Sam, you were going, right?
I just think that there's already an existing problem. It's not, and obviously doing more is going to make it worse. And so I think it's addressing, obviously keeping those things in mind while you're going through this process of due diligence. But I think that it's the developer's responsibility to ensure that they're not adding a burden onto the neighbors and making the problem worse. Now, whether they split this into 6, 8 lots, 9 lots, whatever, you're still going to need some sort of safety measure, even if this wasn't happening. And so that's why I asked the initial question, is our recommendation of safety measures really attached to this property when it seems to me that it needs to be in this area as a whole, regardless of this property?
But that's what I'm saying, it's a separate issue. The issue of speeding needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the developer's problem. They're coming to us to get this permission to subdivide this piece of land, but the speeding is not their problem. It's a town problem, and that needs to be solved. I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure they certainly don't want to add to any problem and make existing neighbors upset. And I think that the offer of meeting with everyone involved to work out a solution internally is fantastic.
Yeah, I would say as long as the developer and your team are willing to do that, I think that's, a very positive step. And I think you've heard from everybody that, traffic, the water issue, and then, on Green Hill, if you can limit the exposure to garages, seem to be on everybody's mind. So I guess in crafting a approval, we'd have to include all of those things that Harrison, Sam, and everybody else has said need to be part of the condition of, moving forward. And so, Kevin?
I was going to answer that question specifically. So the code says, within a period of 5 years, no more than a total of 3 lots may be created out of one tract using the minor subdivision approval process. So, 5 years.
Kevin, can I confirm that there's 7 entrances on the other side of Green Hill Road between?
There's 8.
8? Okay.
Who brings access to Green Hill for these driveways? Us or the DOT, because
We
it's a
do.
state road?
It's not a state road. It's not a state road in the town limits. Beyond town limits going up the hill, it's a state road.
Gotcha.
So
What are some measures we could propose to reduce speeding on, could we propose speed bumps
Well, where? On Green Hill
on
Road?
Green Hill?
No.
Why?
The traffic
We're not going to
study-
put them in. You mean, you recommend that as a planning board to go to council as part of this subdivision? Or what the
I'm
traffic
just
study
saying, I'm
might
just
be?
trying to solve a speeding problem, not, maybe it's for another time.
Well,
Yeah, but, yeah.
Can this
the
recommend,
council was authorized to study. They're gonna pay a consultant to come out and spend a month and do a lot of that. So, in talking with some of the people like Rick Parson and Pam Lowry and others up there who have been working on this problem for some time, I think they're encouraged by the fact that now there's an open process that people can go online and actually give their views. So I think that would help a lot. But I haven't heard from Bill or Pete. Any thoughts from you guys?
That survey is underway. It's gonna be over in June.
It's on the town website.
Right. And I think the chamber may have it too. Bill?
Well, there's one scenario where driveways would not be permitted to access Green Hill in the current code, but the road would have to be classified as arterial. Do you think that change in classification would come out of this traffic study?
I don't have any
Would
idea.
Green Hill ever meet the criteria for an arterial street?
You know,
How about Raceway?
I mean, like, 321 obviously would be. Is that?
Bill, I want y'all to understand, Bill knows the code better than I do. So
That's
I
why I
have
was
to go back and
asking
read
you.
it, where he might know it. So arterial, a major street in the city street system that serves as an avenue for the circulation of traffic into, out, or around the city and carries a high volume of traffic.
Green Hill just barely meets the definition of a collector. It's 850 vehicles per day, and a collector is anything over 800 vehicles per day.
The next,
Oh, it's 700, what I saw, is it 850? It's what
Yeah.
I saw when I was 700.
You know, DOT's got an
Yeah,
interactive
that's
site.
the upper section, yeah.
Yeah, they have different sections where they count it, but yes, DOT's got that interactive site on.
What I saw was 690 at Wonderland and 700, or 700 Wonderland or 690 at Parkway, but
Yeah, this is the
it's
first,
still close.
the first one down at
Yeah.
321.
It's still close. There's no way it would be considered.
Okay, so yeah, Sam?
It seems to me like there's two things that we should consider as a board. The first is, because the request is for more than the 3 lots that could go through, that they could section up, is what impacts do we think that's gonna have? And do we wanna attach any conditions to the approval if we decide to do that, that would minimize that? So that could be doing less lots, it could be shared driveways, there's a number of things that we could talk about with that. And then I think the other one is, is there anything else that we want to consider potentially outside of this project with regards to traffic or something along those lines? But to me, the main thing that we should be considering is having 6 more lots than they could split it up into without going through this process. What impacts does that have to the neighbors, to the neighborhood, to the road, to traffic, water, etc.? And so that feels like where we should focus our discussion.
Kevin, do you want to address that?
I think he's right. I mean, the application in front of you, you think of the external impacts of what they're wanting to do on the neighborhood at large. The traffic study, I misunderstood what you said about the speed bumps. I guess if the traffic study recommends speed bumps, and if the council wants to put speed bumps out on Green Hill Road, then, you know, they'll do that. The recommendations, the council can weigh the recommendations that come out of that and say which ones, how much do we want to spend on it? At what level do they want to do that as a policy decision? I thought you meant as a result of this subdivision, we want to put speed humps on the road.
No, this is
Okay.
part of it,
Yeah,
the ongoing.
yeah. I misunderstood. I thought, no, I don't know if I'd go that far.
But couldn't you make a recommendation that based on the number of lots, we recommend some traffic, not barrier, but some sort of traffic stop, whether it's a stop sign, speed bump, be implemented to offset some of the increased traffic to this area?
I don't think you have that authority.
That's why I'm asking you the question.
I think you could, the issue on accessing through Heather Ridge Lane being private, you can, we did it another subdivision in town where all construction access through the public street only, no access out the bottom. Yeah, I know the town trucks that pick up garbage and collect that, I know they've been going through there for 40, 50 years. And that's where a fire truck's gonna go, that kind of stuff. But for construction traffic, they put a gate up. I mean, I'm sure that's probably crossed their mind, but it's private. And you can make a condition, no access through the private section for construction. That's one.
Keep
thing.
asking you permission about things, but I'm gonna continue that. And
Yeah.
Can we recommend that there be a comprehensive drainage plan for not just each lot, but all lots as one plan?
You know, you could recommend about anything, whether or not it can hold up in scrutiny. You know, will the code allow you that? I don't know that I can answer that without digging in, and, you know, it'd be something I'd have to ask Alan. At what level is a recommendation too much?
That's what
But, you know, I don't know that I can answer it, Sam. I wish I could.
So who wants to
You
take?
could, if you're specific enough to say, look, we think that there's concerns not only for this subdivision, but any subdivision that's in town. We experience runoff, and a recommendation that could be reasonable is that gutter drains are not collected into one location before leaving the site. They're spread out across the site. That driveways are pitched in such a way that they are handled in the ditch line as they exit and get to the road. So the culvert is able to handle it, the road is pitched. You can make specific recommendations like that, so it doesn't rush across the driveway and end up in the neighbor's yard. That's reasonable. I mean, we've done that on individual lots that are developed in town. As they develop, hey, we want to pitch the road so it gets handled in the ditches, not in the neighbor's driveway in front of the yard.
Okay, who wants to take a shot at crafting a motion here?
I don't know that discussion's been closed yet, has it?
Oh, okay, so we need to,
I mean, this board's still open.
yeah, right.
I'll motion to close.
Huh?
I'll motion to close.
Um,
If everybody's done.
I ain't ready yet.
Okay, yeah, then, by all means.
There's not the developer, as a matter of right, doesn't have the wherewithal to say you must do this subdivision. It's discretionary on the part of the planning board to make a recommendation to council without regard to a matter of right to do the subdivision. Am I correct?
So the subdivision is approved in that district as a matter of right. It's in that use category. They can subdivide property as a matter of right. With that are code requirements. A lot less code requirements when you're not building a road. I mean, you got density, minimum square footage of the lot, frontage that's required, utilities to provide reasonable water and sewer service to each lot.
Given that, Kevin,
Yeah.
most of these lots approach half an acre.
Yeah.
One is a fourth of an acre, the smallest is a fourth of an acre. that's much more than the 15,000 square feet in round figures that R15 requires, am I correct?
A fourth or three-fourths, what'd you say?
A fourth of an acre, the 18,000 square feet.
It's more than a fourth,
It's just over half.
no, it's just under a half. So 15,000 square feet is just over a third.
Yes, and
So the
18,000
18 is,
square feet, or close to 19,000 square feet is approximately 4/10 of an acre. But
Yeah.
yeah, not a quarter,
Yeah, 4/10, he said.
4/10, yes.
sorry, I misstated that. In any event, the lots meet the minimum required size for R15. The opportunity for egress and ingress is there. The issue before the planning board seems to me to be that it is not appropriate to subdivide that property to the degree that has been suggested because of traffic issues, because of drainage issues. And the question before us is, do we say because of the concerns that the community has, it's not appropriate for the subdivision? I think that's a hard question.
Just in response to that, I hesitate to think that we wouldn't have the same conversation if it was 3 or 4 lots. Because I think it's an overarching issue that's not necessarily, I mean, it makes it worse. I just think that even with 3 different lots as opposed to 9, we're still talking about the same thing.
3 different lots is probably, is a matter of right.
Or 4, excuse me, over 3.
I think Kevin's looking for some feedback here. So,
So, again, recommendation, your level advisory. I'll mention many communities across North Carolina don't involve the planning board in special use permit, and many are getting away from it that do. We do, and your advisory capacity is valuable to this community, and we'll probably keep doing that unless council wants to change it. But when it gets to council, that's when they're meeting, they have to review the findings of fact. I'll just kind of share those with you, what's required by the code. No special use permit shall be approved by the Board of Commissioners unless each of the following findings is made. The use or development is located, designed, and proposed to be operated so as to maintain or promote the public health, safety, and general welfare. The use or development complies with all required regulations and standards of the land use ordinance, or with variances thereto, if any, and with all other applicable regulations. The use or development is located, designed, and proposed to be operated so as to be compatible with the particular neighborhood in which is to be located. The use or development will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. And finally, the use or development conforms with the general plans for the physical development of the town as embodied in this ordinance, the Town of Blowing Rock Comprehensive Plan, and any other duly adopted plans of the town. So when it gets to council, that's what they have to rule on. So try to answer Mike's question. You can apply conditions to address concerns that are reasonable. And so that's what this opportunity is for you to do.
Thank you.
okay, Harrison, I think you had a motion to close the discussion if there's no other comments from anybody.
Second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded that we close this session. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So, who wants to take a shot at crafting the motion? Mr. Boyer. Bill?
I got one indicated that a shared driveway could also be used between 1 and 2, so as a condition, if the board chooses to move forward, we'll do a 10-foot non-access easement across lots 1 and 3, and make them use Heather Ridge for access, and then shared driveways for 4 and 5, and a shared driveway for 6 and 7. And that puts 2 driveways on Green Hill. Heck of a lot better than 6 that are there now, or possibility of 6.
Okay, and then Sam, you had a couple conditions that you were talking about, the water and the,
I guess one question was, it also proposed to only have one driveway between 7 and 8, or 8 and 9? Is that what you guys recommended, Kevin?
We didn't,
You didn't, you're just on the Green.
just on Green Hill.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only other condition that I would think that we'd want to entertain would be to somehow attach working with the neighbors to ensure
the water.
proper drainage plan is in place for those lots, but I'm not sure how to word that to be a condition.
I'd make a condition that the developer needs to meet with all properties surrounding their development and address each property's concerns separately. Or whatever Kevin is
That's
alluding to right now.
Look, I understand what you're getting at. That's an open door. I think you need to be a little more specific. Because that might be, you know, if we're talking about stormwater particularly, then I think just be a little bit more specific on what you want accomplished. You know,
With this, I'm trying.
yeah.
Okay, so we have what Bill proposed, we have what Sam articulated on the water, and then,
I'm just trying to elaborate on that. I
Okay.
just can't put it into words right now.
so how do we tighten that?
Can a condition be that they take, you know, within reason, that they work to divert water runoff from doing things like going across the road or leading down into other properties or things of that nature? I'm not sure how to fully word that, but that idea where that's in consideration. I'm not sure how to get more specific than that unless we decide to say, like, you know, using things like pitch of the driveways, ensuring that there's enough.
We could say working with Mr. Smith on, you know, upgrading and meeting his expectations for storm runoff from.
Kevin, what did you say earlier about each individual house having its own catch of water?
To spread out, you know, as each gutter drain comes down, you know, some people would collect them all into one place and shoot it in one location. Spread it out. You know, in fact, once you get it away from the house, let it just, you know, wash across the ground instead of piping it to the extents and taking it all the way down to the ditch. Let there be some natural infiltration take place before it reaches to the bottom hill. When you got it in the driveway, water's coming off onto the driveway. It's going to follow that driveway. If it's sloped, it's going to follow it down to the road, but it needs to be pitched in such a way that gets to the ditch and does not go across.
Maybe this is specific enough in that with the condition that the drainage does not ever come collectively together and is addressed separately. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me that wasn't the right
Not-
thing to do.
You could say, stormwater from each house shall not be concentrated and be spread across the site. And I can, if there's a recommendation, I'll capture that.
So Bill,
Carry it over.
with your recommendation, can you dovetail and add what both Sams are saying, so that we can have a motion to,
On the wordsmithing on that, what'd you say?
Each lot shall not concentrate stormwater flow into one location leaving the site. Leaving the lot, each lot shall not concentrate stormwater flow into one location. Now, the details are, if that is a condition, if this is approved, that it becomes one of the conditions of the CUP and it goes on the plat. Now, the key is that whoever's in that office of mine, 10 years down the road, carries that out. Make sure that that happens. So that's the difficult part. It could be, whatever is a condition will also be part of each deed. Because each deed is subject to the plat, which is subject to the conditions of the special use permit.
so Bill, did that answer the wordsmith part?
Awesome.
Probably. So,
You say that this not increase the runoff to adjoining properties?
I don't think that's possible. What I'm saying is not concentrated. There's going to be an increase, building a house in a forested area. But that flow not be concentrated in such a way that's going to that it not be concentrated.
Concentrate stormwater.
Yeah.
And the driveways be ditched to minimize.
Do a negative slope, they drive in. So it hits the ditches.
You would say driveways be designed so that stormwater reaches the ditch line and does not sheet flow across the road. Patrick, you understand what I'm saying?
Might be tough to do on lot 7 and 6 to get a reverse negative flow.
Well, 7 and 6 is going to go to Green Hill. It's not going to jump the road.
Now, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's maybe tough to do. And that, I think the rest of these we can pitch it to the ditch, but to get a reverse flow on lot 6 and 7, it may be tough when you're limited to 12% grade.
Let's see if I can get Doug on the call.
I'm here.
Attentive, ready to go. Thank you, Doug. Any suggestions on, you've heard some of this, I guess?
I have, I think the intentions are well made. I think the application of the idea is going to be difficult. This isn't something that we typically address on a single-family residence relative to stormwater. There's lots of ideas that could be done. We could talk about some type of detention or holding the water, but that's not part of the ordinance. I think Kevin's suggestion to ask the builder / developer / property owner when they build a house to endeavor to avoid concentrating flows. But water is going to seek the easiest way to flow, and that is often concentrated flow. Back years ago when we started using stormwater best management practices, or BMPs, everybody talked about using level spreaders. And a level spreader, you take a
piece of pipe and a piece of material, and you put a level plane across the outlet to spread the water out across it. And invariably, something will happen and it'll settle or something, and all the flow will still go to one point. So it's very hard to diffuse stormwater flow. But I think asking when the houses are developed that the flow not be concentrated is probably your best bet. But it's still one of those things where stormwater and blowing rock is going to always cause a problem. You heard Mr. Smith talk about all the problems he'd had already, and this whole site is undeveloped and heavily wooded. So that's probably the optimal condition for avoiding runoff. If you put one house on it, it's only going to increase the runoff, regardless of which direction it goes. So I think that's going to be a challenge. One of the things may be for the planning board to make a recommendation, and that gives some time for staff to look at possibilities of wording prior to it going to the town council meeting.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, so with what Doug said, and crafting something to the council with the appropriate caveats and everything, what do you think? Yeah, probably. We're gonna have to vote on it.
Motion to approve the subdivision with the following conditions. Limiting driveway access by a 10-foot non-access easement along lots 1 and 3, shared driveways for lots 4 and 5, and lots 6 and 7. Condition number 2. Encourage the developer to endeavor to not concentrate stormwater flow on each individual lot. Encourage the developer to meet with neighbors to address stormwater concerns.
Okay.
Anything else?
Were we gonna talk about the speed thing, or just let that, or maybe not speed, but safety?
I don't think you have the authority to get beyond that. That's not, it's noted, and the study is ongoing and just started this week.
Okay.
And so those recommendations will take care of those issues, I believe.
Okay.
I mean, if we didn't feel like it'd be worth, if the council didn't think it'd be worth doing, they wouldn't be spending the money on doing it. And I think there's a need in trying to address it. But to bring it into this discussion, other than the effects of this property directly on Green Hill, as far as access, I checked with Alan earlier this week on that.
Okay. All right, so Bill has a motion. Any questions on the motion?
Second.
Okay, there's been a second. Any more discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Okay, moving along to finish up, we have under discussion, at the last meeting, we had some input about residential density, and we had discussions about the general plan downtown density. I think, Sam, both of you guys were pretty animated about your thoughts on that. So I think I talked with Kevin, and I think really the way to do this is to form another subcommittee to look at this, really dig into it. And so, I would like to suggest both the Sams and Harrison, if you want to do it, or Bill. I know you've been on every subcommittee that we've had. How many people should we have on it, Kevin? Four? Four. Okay. So myself, the two Sams, and Bill. Is that okay?
Sounds great.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Do we
You got
need-
that, Tammy, I didn't,
Do we need to have a motion on that, or?
yes.
Okay. So it's been recommended that we form a new subcommittee to look at the density issue. Both the Sams, Bill, and myself will be part of that subcommittee. If there's a motion to approve that,
Motion to approve.
Second.
okay. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Kevin, do you want to talk about downtown deliveries? I think you had some comments on that, or?
That came out at council this month, and they would like to, planning board to start discussion and research on how to limit deliveries in downtown. Now, not if they're pulling on private property, I'm not talking about that, but, you know, where they're stopping in the middle of Main Street or Sunset or Morris,
Right,
you know.
right.
So, other communities have done it, and whether it be, everything's got to be before 11 o'clock. So, it's new for me, but I think it's something that, again, the subcommittee can study that and come up with some recommendations.
So
on
should
how-
we fold that into this subcommittee that we just formed?
For density and kind of delivery density.
Sure, yeah, I mean, if you, yeah, it'd be fine to handle those two things.
Okay. All right, so
They're hand in hand, residential density and delivery.
Delivery
trucks.
density.
It's all a problem.
Okay, so we'll just fold it into the new subcommittee.
And the good thing about a subcommittee is we can move and meet, and, you know, like we've always done it, we don't have to go through a lot of process. We can meet, it's open, anybody come in if they want to.
Because of, these are really important issues, I mean, at some point, we're gonna wanna have public input.
It'll come back to this.
It'll come
Whatever,
back.
whatever y'all recommend as subcommittee, when you present it to
Back to the
planning
this
board, yeah.
And then we'll have a public hearing, okay?
Well,
So,
it'll be an opportunity for public discussion, you know, whoever it shows. But the public hearing part is when any code change is made.
right,
And that'll be at the council.
okay, and the final thing is prohibited land use on 321.
Yeah, it's part of the 321 study, and I've mentioned a couple times, looking at the studies that said, take a look at arcades, tattoo parlors, palmists, those kind of things that I guess are,
Psychics.
yeah, you know, those type of uses that maybe they're less desirable, how to study those, and, you know, should they be prohibited, limited? Yeah, arcades, I don't see a lot of people knocking the door down for arcades, except for what Bert wanted to do. Might be reasonable that it be accessory to a principal use and not a standalone arcade. Again, I don't see a trend in arcades popping up around here, but it was listed in the study, and so it's something to address.
Any thoughts?
What's the question? What do we think? Are you suggesting that we do something additional, or just, weren't there recommendations in the study of certain uses being limited, or am I?
Yes, yeah, there was.
Are you?
I don't have any language for you to consider.
Yeah.
So we listed it tonight on the agenda as general discussion. If if y'all say, Kevin, put together a code amendment that would, A, B, and C, whatever that is, related to those prohibited or types of uses you want to prohibit, I'll do that. I wish I had something for you tonight, and I've said that a couple times, but.
Is that not already covered under the permissive use statute?
Well, it is. We don't have a use category for tattoo parlors. So how would it fit in? Is there a category that it is closely related to in our use table? I don't think we have one.
Should we put one in then?
If we put one in with a definition and we put it in the table, you then leave the zoning districts where it could go in the table blank, meaning that we recognize this as a use, but we don't have a place for it.
That's what.
And unless it's something that's protected by statute that you have to have a place for, that's the way you would address it.
Well,
About right.
I thought you did that when we worked on these things. You put it somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't.
You put it in an empty box.
We didn't. We put it in a box that hadn't gotten any progress. I have not put anything in paper in front of you to review. So that's on me. You know, I can bring something to you next month. If you give me some direction, say that you agree with, if arcades need to be prohibited, because you can have an arcade if they need to be prohibited, limited, or as in scope, how many video games you can have, or should they be accessory to a principal use in general business? Yeah, we'll move that way.
Okay.
I mean, Pete might want to run out and get a tattoo, anytime. Do we want to limit Pete to say you're going to have to go to Boone to get one? I don't know that there's been a great need or a great desire for people coming to Blowing Rock. Hey, where's the tattoo joint?
Well,
But
start at the coffee shop.
maybe one side you get a tattoo and come around, you get your cup of coffee. But
seriously, the issue of permissive use and how to word that definition of arcade may be more than one line item.
right,
Would you come back to us with your thoughts on that?
yes.
Okay. Let's leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Finally, a lawyer with a short.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Real clear to follow statutes where we do not have internet parlors, that kind of deal. Now, we have not had a request to do that in the last 5 years.
Request for kids arcades before you have the adult.
The only time we've had it for kids arcade was related to Burt's, Foggy Rock putting it downstairs. And then, all heck broke loose. I mean, did it?
Yeah, there's an issue.
It became an issue.
Okay, so
We'll address it.
Kevin, you'll get back to us on that, and thank you for that. Other business, any updates, Kevin, on anything? Next month, we'll have a meeting.
As I understand, the country club wants to come back with their special use permit that they had originally applied for. They put it on the shelf, and I think they want to come back
Okay.
in June.
Have we heard anything back from Heathington?
No,
No,
not a word.
not a word.
What's the issue on the 40 feet height? The Civic Association has pointed out that we failed to consider the height issues.
I don't know.
What's that?
Let's ask Marshall.
On the Pine Street.
Townhouse, the 8 townhouses on Pine and Laurel.
Okay. I've been out of touch, so I don't.
Okay.
There was a question as to how the buildings were measured. And it was being brought up, I think Tim shared an email with several folks on how that has been reviewed. And so each building is its own, on a lot. They're townhomes, so each one of them has a separate way to measure building height based on whether it's off so many feet off the street or the sidewalk, or whether once it's 50 feet into the lot, then a different rule applies. And so that's how it was calculated.
And that's how it's
I
graduated.
heard that one. So the last one I heard was the office, was it an office or was it a
Right.
bedroom?
Yeah.
So,
So we addressed that, you know. The question was, you know, the term is sleeping room in the building code. And there was an office shown on the plans, and it was. And so by building code, that's not a sleeping room. So we went far enough to say, as a condition of approval, that those office, bonus room, those things are not to be used as sleeping rooms, as defined by the building code. So we had done what we could to address it, and as long as it didn't meet the criteria found in the building code, we were trying to address something that could be a problem or perceived as a problem. And then he pulled out the problem, so we'll see if it goes to
any updates on Barker and the hotel?
They cut some trees
Right.
right behind the speckled trout. You know, it's imminent, but I don't know when they want to move forward. So,
All approvals are in place.
yes, there's some things that they have to, like they need to submit a bond to cover. There was a requirement in the CUP that they submit a bond to cover utilities, grading or regrading, landscaping, things like that.
That has not been done yet.
That has not been done, but it's just a matter of following through, and then we'll have a pre-construction and turn the grading contractor loose. They've been on the site to tear down both houses, and they're gonna dress up the areas that have been disturbed, just temporarily.
Okay, anything else? Anybody, any other comments, questions? Okay, motion to adjourn? So moved. Thank you all.